I will be introducing Josh, your lovely moderator for the afternoon, and he will in turn have the privilege of introducing all the panelists. So without further ado, Josh Emmington, Research and Insights Manager from the MarTech Group. Josh has led hundreds of research engagements for leading brands, exploring difficult questions and audiences, and developing a zeal for well-executed market research fundamentals. He's a trailblazer, evangelizing the use of pragmatic emotion research. His passion for digging deep and delivering on difficult projects keeps his pulse on the evolving landscape, including new tech. He's also a board member at MSMR and PRC. He's an Eagle Scout, and he's an advanced open water diver. Please welcome Josh.
Thanks very much. Excellent. Thanks everybody for coming, and absolutely you're going to be involved in the presentation today. It's going to be a bit like a focus group. So think of yourself as that seventh member of the focus group, and we'll be fielding questions, ping-ponging them back and forth. So I was walking to work one day about 95% asleep as usual, and as I often do, I looked at my phone and I saw that the IA forum feed was blowing up, and there was definitely a strong need felt in this forum for more discussion, more education, and more connection and commitment to association researchers so that they could share all the knowledge that they have because they're ahead in many areas, and so that they can learn from one another. So that's what we're here to do today, is just to create a platform so that you can learn from that group and so that they can learn from one another. So without any further ado, let's get the right folks up here. Introducing to the stage, we have Stacy Miller. Come on down. Excellent. Stacy Miller joined the Auto Care Association in 2017, and she's been coordinating research and developing communication strategies that will elevate that association as well as the industry for that entire time. Her success has led to a recent promotion where she's now the Senior Director of Communication, and she continues to differentiate and to diligently leverage those insights for the group, which includes over 500,000 different stakeholders, and these are individual businesses. Next up, we have Jim Eshelman. All right. Jim spearheads research for the Denver Regional Council of Governments, and they typically pronounce that Dr. Cog, looking at the acronym there. But he runs both grant-funded and process improvement research there. He has prior experience with AC Nielsen and with Vantage Marketing Research. He also holds a PRC, and he's previously contributed here in the industry. All right, next up we have Sarah Holy. Come on down. Sarah Holy has a passion for mission-driven NPOs. She works with the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and she's also previously worked with the American Diabetes Association research team. She executes actual intelligence and has done so for over 25 years. ACOG's current strategic plan calls for a number of initiatives to deliver on the experience of the members and to support the OBGYN profession and the ACOG as an institution. So they're investing heavily in market research, and Sarah's heading that up. Next, we have Rob Garay with the IIA. Thanks, Rob. Rob has been overseeing the market research function at the IIA and combining data science and traditional insights. He's also has experience with Hilton Worldwide as well as SeaWorld, and he loves technical solutions and all things digital. Next, we have Lisa Hersey. Lisa has a wealth of experience. She's coordinated marketing and policy research for the National Association of Realtors over the last 14 years and has completed 100 projects plus annually. Her combined research experience exceeds 18 years, now 19 years, and covers multiple methodologies. Next, we have John Luprez. John Increase is the market research manager for RSNA, an association of over 50,000 members in the global radiological community. He's a veritable Swiss Army knife of research, and he's also an expat and a former professor with a wide breadth of experience in multiple and mixed methods of research. So if you want to get to know these folks better, stalk their LinkedIn, check out their speaker profiles, or get on IA so that you can check that out further. All right, let's just see from the audience, who here is a supplier partner? Okay, you're going to want to know these association researchers better. Anybody here that is with an association or NPO serving as a corporate researcher? Okay, perfect. Definitely come up, introduce yourselves, get to know this group, let's network. And anyone that is in a for-profit brand conducting that research. Okay, excellent. So I think we'll have a lot to learn from what they have to say as they are pioneering, volunteering, and advocacy in a couple other areas. Great, just to get us off to a good start, Stacy, could you give us a quick overview of what it's like working in an association as a corporate researcher, and maybe one large challenge that you had?
Absolutely. Working in an association is probably one of the most interesting parts of my career. I worked for a corporate software company that did insights and intelligence and monitoring for 10 years, and I moved to the association world. We have a market intelligence and research team who's been doing market research for a very long time about the size and the scope of the industry. And our biggest challenge was that we are putting a lot of work into our market research, but no one was reading it. So one of the things that I've been tasked with is trying to get that research to go farther, increase awareness of the association and those numbers and the size and the scale, but do it in a strategic way that extends beyond our members.
Oh, perfect. So Rob, I know that you deal with data insights and with data science and combining that. Have you seen anything recently that you view as really important for working inside an association like that?
Yeah, so recently we just kind of underwent something with MarTech in working on the first ever domain study and segmentation study for our association. So we are 78 years old and we're an internal audit association, so never having some of that audience information on exactly the different markets, the different segments that we have has kind of really been eye-opening. It's kind of helping us tie things together from what we do today to what we need to do in the future and how we can market better and kind of engage that audience.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we want to cover today are some different beliefs or myths about associations. So one of the things that I always believed until just a couple years ago is that there's just no money at associations for research. Are there any other items in the audience? Anybody think anything else about associations that's kind of a belief that you strongly hold? Oh, great. So the comment was maybe they're slower because there's more bureaucracy, there's more involved. Any reactions to that, John? Have you noticed anything like that?
Yeah, so I understand your point, and actually at RSNA, we're moving aggressively towards a more risk-tolerant attitude within management. It's a management issue like in many other organizations. And what we found is that sort of the changing of the guard in management has led to a change, a philosophical change in the organization. And so we're much more risk-tolerant now, and that is percolating through the whole organization, starting with the leadership and all the way down.
Perfect. Sarah, what's your experience been there?
Well, I will actually confirm that yes, sometimes we are slower. I'm also working on a persona development segmentation study this year, and because we have to get buy-in from so many stakeholders across the organization, everything takes just a little bit longer.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we really wanted to see if we could cover are major differences between for-profits and for nonprofits and associations. So, Jim, have you noticed anything that you'd say this really stands out as a major difference?
Well, I think the currency, and in a for-profit business, you're looking at what happens to the bottom line, what happens to revenue, and you're trying to predict what's going to happen. In our case, with the Council of Governments, we do a lot of different services, and the results are measured in many different ways. One in particular is we work on trying to get people to stop driving alone and use public transit, ride bicycles to work. You have a little experience with that, or walk to work. And so what we measure our success on is the reduction in vehicle miles of travel and vehicle trips. And then we can bring that down to a dollar value and actually calculate an ROI. But the objective is to a lot of times achieve a social goal. Many of our services for older adults, we're trying to extend the amount of time they can remain in their homes and reduce healthcare costs. And so we measure our success that way.
Yeah, excellent. Lisa, one of the things that we've been talking about here are some of those different goals. So have you seen anything evolve in terms of typical types of research, typical types of goals, at associations?
Well, one of the things that I think is about to evolve at the National Association of Realtors, we similarly have had a change in leadership and a change in strategic goals. And one of the major strategic goals, in fact, the top of the strategic goals, is members first. So member engagement better be in your KPIs. Now, the research group, revenue actually is part of our KPI, and Stacy, you and I were talking about that earlier. You build products that people will buy, and we are a revenue generator. My team, the Business Insights team, not a revenue generator. I have a little itty bitty revenue goal, and I'm expected to hit it, and I always blow it out of the water. But I'm there to help make internal business decisions. But I think one of the, people don't call me as often on KPIs, but I think they need to start doing that, and I need to start setting myself up for that. And I think member engagement is going to be something that I need to work with the communications department and the rest of the research team on measuring more often. Because I don't know about the rest of you, but I would say 10% of our members are engaged at all. And by at all, I mean clicking on a call for action, sending an email, taking a survey, anything that would indicate engagement. So we're sort of trying to wrap our brains around that right now.
Yeah, perfect. Stacey, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. And it seems that the trend here is associations are going through some change and realizing that we can't just operate. We have to focus on the revenue in order to survive, in order to compete. So similarly, changing leadership, changing up the guard, changing strategic direction, and revenue has been a focus. And market research has largely been a member benefit, but maybe not one that we communicated very well to our members, especially when we look at our engagement. So market research is dynamic, it's always changing, it's evolving, and you can't just take a data set and kind of look at it for 18 years and never ask your members, hey, is this useful? Is this something that you need for your business? Is this helping you make better business decisions? So in the past 4 years, we had new team members come on to help us develop new products and services that help businesses in the automotive industry make better business decisions, and they make more money by using the market research that they purchase from us in their business. So that's one of our KPIs.
Oh, that's perfect. Anyone in the audience have any questions about customer engagement, either at their own organization or elsewhere? Yeah, go for it.
I'm curious to know what the engagement is across the board, like if everybody had a metric.
Yeah, definitely. We have membership engagement metrics. We have 50,000 members. We have an annual meeting coming up in November that has 50,000 attendees, and so we do a lot of figuring out what people want and making sure that they get it.
We have one of the metrics that our group uses is press mentions. We track the press mentions, and we get something insane like 70% of all mentions for the National Association of Realtors because we generate so many stats. But in terms of member engagement, that's something we need to look at.
We're actually going through this right now. We do have membership engagement data, but we're also looking at penetration rate as well. So not just the overall audience of who our members are, which we have 75,000 members in North America and then 200,000 worldwide, but how many of the non-members as well have also interacted with us, because not everyone is a part of our association. They don't have to be. There's, if they don't see the value in the membership, but they won't see the value in our training or certifications, they can still do that. And I can say that depending on what it is, from certifications up to membership, and some of the penetration rate that we're seeing can range from 20% to 60%, depending on what it is.
Yeah, so I work in the OBGYN Association, and so people join our association, a lot of them to get the initials after their name, that they are an FACOG, they're a fellow of ACOG. So we have very high penetration rates, so that was interesting to hear you talk about that. But engagement is much lower. These people are very busy. So we have engagement from, a small group of people, which then, these are the volunteers and these are the people generating ideas. And so we keep building a product for these people who keep talking to us and that have our ear, and we miss out on the other people who are too busy. So I think that's really, I like that you brought up the retention and engagement, because they're two totally different things.
We have a board of directors that's made up of 58 representatives from local counties and municipalities in the Denver area, and we regularly survey those people just to see how engaged they are in the process of making regional decisions and how well we're serving them. But then we also reach out to the staffs, members in each of those local governments, just to see what the value is of the services we're offering them, of their awareness of the availability of those services. And then we're also always searching for something new that we can provide to local governments.
And for us, in addition to member engagement, whether that's digitally or in person through meetings and events, revenue being one, market penetration, so we deliver standards that businesses need to sell products in North America, so making sure that we are the leader in that market. And similar to you, mind share. So are we in the conversation, particularly, are we at the beginning of the sentence when we're talking automotive, we're talking tariffs and the effect of tariffs on American consumers driving on the road? We want to make sure our mind share, we're first in that sentence. That's another key KPI for us.
Yeah, another thing that we were talking about that I think is related, before we walked up here, we were talking about research engagement, engagement with the participants. And we've seen much more engagement from some groups within these associations. I know Rob and I talked about that. Jim, can you talk to a little bit of the difference that you've seen between engagement with for-profits and with associations?
Yeah, so we have a very different value proposition. When I go to the panels here at the meeting, the only product that we sell at RSNA is our mission statement. That's our main product. Everything stems from that. And when I talk to external vendors, I have to put that right at the forefront. It's like, you have to understand what our mission is, because if you're not speaking to our mission, you're not really going to be able to help us. So that's a big difference that I see from both my experience in for-profit versus nonprofit.
Perfect. Sarah, go ahead. Yeah.
No, somebody else want to answer?
I think from the engagement, because being in an association today, but also previously being at Hilton and SeaWorld, there's a lot of similarities between hospitality overall to associations, in my opinion, from memberships and how things work and the different product lines. But in terms of engagement and how to either get people engaged with a survey, focus group, or something else, I've definitely seen high engagement rates for association, because there's typically a connection to that. So, like I said, we're Internal Auditor Association, so they truly want to better the profession or better their association because they feel there's ownership or a part of them for it. Whereas back at SeaWorld or Hilton, if I sent out a survey, we probably get less than 1% for every 100,000 we sent it to. And it's just because they don't have any connection to it. Next time I might say at Marriott, next time I might say someplace else, or I have that brand loyalty because I have my rewards points with you, and I'm going to stay there regardless how bad or good it is. So.
It looked like we had one more question under that umbrella. Do you still have that one?
I was going to ask,
those are two major buckets, but I mean, most of what I'm focusing on is how can we improve our members' lives professionally? How can we improve professionalism? How can we make better educational offerings? How can we, help them with benefits, things like that. So.
And my role also includes a responsibility for strategic insights for the organization. So I also cover the OT and SWOT. So I am responsible for doing environmental scanning, looking up the horizon, looking at both opportunities and threats to the organization, to radiology generally, and then advising senior leadership at the organization of these.
We have a kind of research that we found really hard to scale. So we have the thought leadership research that we use for PR and for awareness, and we have research that we do on our members. And then we have the research that we do for members to help them with a business problem. So we have an on-demand consulting unit where any member can call in and say, hey, I need to know how many brake pads were sold in the past 3 years and what the trend was. And we'll have a market intelligence analyst go and research that and find that data for that person. And we don't ask them what it's for or what they're going to use it for or charge them because they're a member, and we return that data back to them. Our challenge is scaling that across 3,000 member companies and 500,000 individuals, and then figuring out a better way to utilize that data, because we research it, we hand it over to them as a member service, and then it's lost. But those little tidbits of data could be useful in other ways, whether it's archiving or PR or, I think there's a million different ways we could use it, but that's one of the other kind of research bits that we do.
Yeah. Does anyone else have that challenge where you have a lot of data that could be leveraged, but it's unavailable or it's not being leveraged today?
We have a lot of data on transportation and on healthcare and things like that, older adults, that probably if we had more resources, we could dig out more insights out of that information. But right now we try and be on the cutting edge of doing evaluation for grant-funded projects. We try to be the leader in the United States among organizations like ours for that, and then also we offer research as a service for a fee too. But yeah, definitely there's lots of data there that if we had more people that we could put on that, or if we had the technology as that advances, we could probably dig more insights out of that.
Yeah, that's perfect. Specific to that KPI of finance that Lisa was just mentioning, does anyone have any questions about how that's done within associations?
I guess the question is, how are you generating money for your research? For your talking about selling secondary, or do you like have a P&L or a revenue number you have to meet by going outside to members and sell them additional stuff, anything like that, or it's all member service?
We have some programs that we are fee for service. We have a program called the Guaranteed Ride Home that is sold to companies that buy transit passes. It's to provide their employees with a taxi ride home if they become ill at work, and they pay a fee, and we use that money. We do a lot of research to improve that service and run that service, and that's something I'm in charge of. But we're always looking for streams of revenue that aren't restricted by federal requirements and things like that to do different things. And so there's just a variety of different revenue streams that come into our organization.
So at the IA, we are not a revenue stream. We're a shared service, so all business units at our company use our services. We're under the marketing department, which is truly a shared service as well. However, what we do try to do, and we're starting to do this more, so not saying we do this today, but trying to tie more KPIs to our business units themselves. So one thing that we've done in the past was our training department would develop their attendance rates for next year, their what they think will hit, their forecast numbers. And we would take a look at them, and it would be outrageous. There would be nothing in the data to show that you wanted to grow by 45% when we didn't get new courses out, you didn't change anything, you're in the same exact locations, and our target didn't change any. So where does the 45% growth go? It's just the numbers that you want to hit from a revenue standpoint, not that there's anything to back it up. So then what my team would do is take a look at the previous attendance rates, different at those specific locations, and we kind of do a low, medium, and high of, here's our very lowest look, here's the conservative look, and here's really your highest expectation. And again, it would never be 45%. That's what we do today on a smaller scale, but what we'd also like to do in the future we do member surveys, we do engagement surveys, and have all this data. And we want to tie that to KPIs back to the business units of if your engagement rate or membership satisfaction today is 72%, what are we going to do to make it 74% next time we run the survey? Or how are we going to increase satisfaction for conferences? Or how's that going to tie back to the overall engagement? And how do we grow that? Which then ties back to revenue, but it's not necessarily from us, it's from that business line.
We have a revenue stream that I don't know the details of because it's our economic research area, but I know there's revenue tied to the aggregation of an enormous number of data sources, including national MLSs, and in order to generate the economic statistics that move the housing market, move the stock market. So that's a major revenue generator. We also do repeating studies, like the whole buyer and seller study, where people pay to have extra questions in that. They pay to purchase the report itself. Members get a deeply discounted cost on things like that. And my little revenue goal is based on doing studies for outside companies who have an interest in the real estate market. And there was one year where that was so popular, I had to put a stop to it because it was just me, and I had to cry uncle. This year, I, was able to get one contract in, so it just varies.
I'm scared to talk about this one because it's either going to end up really good for me or really bad for me at the end of this fiscal year. So the base of our market research revenue came from printing and selling publications with charts and tables in them that you have to sit and digest and read and decipher the trends and analysis on your own. We'd print the book, we'd bind it, we'd send it to whoever purchased it. That was the main way that we had to generate revenue with market research. That was up until 3 years ago. And we had a revenue target of maybe $100,000, which barely covered the cost of what it costs us in order to produce that research and partner and do the graphics and all of those things. So what we did was we had to evolve in order to meet the needs of our members. Sure, they love the printed book, but they wanted to see it on their tablet, they wanted to see it on their computer and mobile. They wanted to interact with the data. So we debuted 2 new products in order to read and interact with the data that we sold at higher prices, and we were given a revenue target of $1 million by the end of this fiscal year. So what we did was we launched a digital platform, just like an e-reader where you could actually view that publication that we used to print online, which has been a success. We've seen sales increase of the publications with that. And then we took it a step further and we hired a developer on our technology team to develop a tool that would plot all the points of the data, and you can hover over them, you could compare different data sets, you could upload your business's data into it and do comparative analysis, download it, put it in your sales presentations, customize it with your colors, etc. And that's where we're banking on this new market research revenue goal to come from. So TBD on that, but I'm really proud of the way that we've been able to evolve and as an association to meet that need.
So we don't generate revenue, but all of our work touches on all the revenue generating aspects of our organization. So whether it's the annual meeting, we've published 5 peer-reviewed journals, we provide continuing medical education. Again, there's discounted rates for members, but we have non-members take part in these services as well or purchase these services. And our research goes to looking at the formats, looking at cost, pricing comparisons. So while we don't generate revenue ourselves, we touch on all the revenue generating parts and influence them. So that's our stake.
One of the other mysteries and complexities with these associations can be volunteering, and I know that Rob has some volunteers that he has to organize and understand. What have you seen work in terms of understanding that volunteer base and growing it?
So one thing that we're doing this year that we haven't done previously is, like I said, we do it every other year, member needs survey. It's just really to get engagement and satisfaction and some other demographics and things like that. but we haven't really got our volunteers or specifically our chapter leaders involved in previous years. So what we're doing this year is not only getting them involved, they get what we call cap points. It's just like, every chapter gets certain points, and if you hit a threshold, then you get more money from the association, essentially. We're getting them involved that if they hit certain thresholds, they get more cap points, which then they can return back. But also what we're doing with that too is if they hit certain thresholds, we're also going to do a specific cut for their chapter to show them benchmarking against other chapters in the area or how they're doing overall. And we're also setting up one-on-one consultations with them at our leadership conference that we have in April next year. And that's kind of how we're trying to engage the volunteers a little bit more, but how we also are trying to garner new volunteers, because just like I'm assuming most of the associations here, the people on the committees and the boards are kind of the same people over and over again. They kind of just rotate through. But part of the segmentation study that we did earlier this year with MarTech, we started to look at the different personas of each and start identifying who might be good future leaders. The escalating execs or the staff level people who could be wanting to get involved, but they don't know how to get involved, or they can't get involved because they don't feel they meet the criteria. And we can actively go after those people in the future, so that way we can try and gain them into our volunteer leadership and start to get new blood into that pipeline.
That's great. Do we have any questions from the audience about volunteering or how that's managed or grown?
That's actually the first time I've heard of association really going after volunteers and segmentation methods. Anyone else do that with their membership? Just seeing how they do that.
Yeah, the average age of our member, median age, is 54. The median age of our volunteer leadership is more like 64. They're old. So we need younger people, and there's been an enormous push to get particularly people under 40 and even more particularly people under 30 involved. But also to diversify what the volunteer leadership looks like. So we're working on that.
So RSNA has 50 different committees that advise the board on various issues, and each one of those is probably at least 10 members. And we did persona research early last year in support of redeveloping our website. And one of the things that comes out of the persona research is that all the people on the committees are all part of one persona. And so we have a really good idea of who our members are and actually to a greater extent what the radiological community looks like overall. Our challenge is reaching some of those personas who are not highly engaged. And we know who they are now, or we have a better sense of who they are, and we have some ideas about how to reach them. And so the next thing we're looking at is engaging in some journey mapping to try to really get into the nitty-gritty and find out and engage with these people, because the highly engaged people are already volunteering. We need to reach the rest of the community, because for our mission we serve radiology with a capital R. So that's what we're trying to do.
We found the exact same thing, same members over and over again. We created women's groups and groups for under 40 to try to bring those generations. And in automotive, they're mostly multi-generational businesses, so the parents are passing the businesses down to their children, but we're trying to get people into automotive, change the perception. Our challenge with volunteers, aside from learning who they are, is the way that they drive what the association does, particularly in market research. So we say we're member-driven, but we'll have committees say, we really need market research on automotive collision trends. And we're like, yes, absolutely, that's a great idea. And we get together and we put together a publication and we put it out for 5 years, and the committee is the only one consuming it. And not only are they the only ones consuming it, but they're not paying for it because they're a member and they're the ones who contributed. So now we go back to our volunteers and we say, hey, before we take on some of these projects, we need to talk about the scope of the research and how it really affects the entire industry, because that type of research is the type of research that's going to take the industry far and wide. And currently, while we're committed to you and you're our members, we're here for the greater good of the industry as well, to elevate the industry. So we've had to broaden the scope and get out of some of those narrow pockets of research that were really taking up our time and effort, but not providing the ROI to the association.
How common is that to have a conflict between serving the industry versus serving your membership? How do you kind of deal with that?
I think probably for all of us up here, any association has that challenge because, like I said, we're the profession for internal auditors, but you also need to serve your members too. So you kind of have to play that fine balance of when it's right to do it for the members only versus when it's for everyone. For example, we do something, we're the standard setting body for internal audit. So it's basically the rules and regulations that one has to follow in order to be an internal auditor. Well, you can't make that for members only because there are internal auditors out there who aren't members, and we don't want to necessarily make money off of that because that's something that should be standard setting, so we open that to everyone. Then there's additional practice guides that we do put for members only that kind of put in a more practical sense. But I think that's a challenge that we kind of all face in our day-to-day because you want to give benefits to your members, but you also are trying to give back to the profession. And I think something that we say too sometimes is no money, no mission. You know, at the end of the day, if we're not making some profit off of something from whether it be members or non-members to gain them to members, without that, we don't exist.
Sarah, do you deal with standards? Is that something that is part of the research that you do?
No, I don't do that. We have a whole group that does the clinical guidelines, so that is completely separate, but it is a huge part of what the association offers to its members. So it's a very important benefit that they get, but of course, like other associations, there's free riders. There's some people who will benefit without, being a member.
Any questions from the audience about standards or about that conflict or in the volunteer area? Okay, perfect. So, yeah. Go ahead.
We do some research with healthcare organizations, and obviously with KPIs, not another professional organization, other than the American Medical Association. Sometimes we find that there's a question of value. They feel that they have to belong, as you say, because they want the letters of their name. Do you ever work with members? There are some people that, not seeing value, talking about one side that,
Excellent. So the question is there a lapsed, a lapsed value component that you look at, and how do you define some of the different dimensions of the value that you're offering to your members?
Yeah, so I was surprised to find out that the association did not do any lapsed member research, but we are seeing the demographics of OBGYNs change a lot, and we are seeing some people retiring maybe earlier than people had retired in the past. So that's something definitely that we are looking at right now, because that's, we really need to know if people are going to be retiring in droves, then we're going to have a shortage of OBGYNs in this country, and that's something that my organization needs to address quickly.
So we also do lapsed membership research. It's really important to us because we're looking at lifetime value of membership, and the lapsed members are the ones we really want to back because they've already shown that they're engaged. So at some level, but they stop being engaged for some reason. So yeah, we definitely pay attention to that, and we do a lot of research on that.
Our lapsed member research revealed gaps in our membership strategy. So I talked about being in automotive, we service these amazing businesses across the supply chain. Our lapsed in our members who weren't retained, the reason that they lapsed was because they were taking advantage of one of maybe 20 benefits that we offered that was time bound, such as a discount to attend a conference or exhibit at a show. And they had no idea that we offered, standards or advocacy or any of these things. So what it really revealed was, hey, our membership communication strategy needs to change, and it's no longer, hey, join the association because you get this discount. It's, hey, join the association so that your business can live and survive and thrive for generations to come. So that was a big revelation for us.
Excellent. Yes? Thanks. So the question is how do you decide to allocate your resources?
It's a combination. It's mostly, honestly, driven by the volunteer leadership. If there's a large swath of the volunteer leadership who feel like X really needs to be a focus, then that's probably going to get folded into the 3-year budget cycle, and that money is going to be allocated. We have a very, very large governance structure and thousands of people. So that is generally what drives it.
So we're a little different. We're a staff-driven organization. So the board sets out strategic priorities, and then it is taken by the staff, thought about, and then implemented by senior leadership. So for us, it's we have a steadier course over time because our board leadership rotates through a cycle, and so we have a lot more continuity, and so we can see where we're going in that respect.
Our priorities are also driven by our board and our leadership, but through surveys, through research, through focus groups, what we found was that our board's priorities were not our members' priorities. And the tangled web that it unfurled for us, which we're still trying to figure out, is that different personas prioritize different benefits. So our members that were 50 plus prioritized advocacy. Our members that were under 30 prioritized market research. So we have to now create those personas and market those benefits to each of those personas differently based on their priority. So that's a project we need to take on.
For our organization, the board sets most of the priorities, but then also in the area of research in particular, different grants and the dollar amounts of those grants will prioritize our research based on that and just the money that's set aside to do that research. So, and then we also try to serve our smaller jurisdictions and our members because they oftentimes don't have a budget to do some of the things we can do for them. And so that's a priority for us as well.
Yeah, that's great feedback. So as we're wrapping up here, I want to touch on one last category that we've had a lot of interest around, which is advocacy. So are there any questions from the audience about how these associations and nonprofits are able to boost advocacy and deal with it as brands get involved with that category as well? Sarah, could you talk to us about a time that you had to take a stance on an issue within your association?
Sure. So prior to being at ACOG, I was at the American Diabetes Association, and that was a much different organization. It was, our members were people with diabetes, and we considered anybody who bought our magazine to be a member. So we also have professional members who were discounted if they came to the conference. So totally different type of organization. But an issue that has come up, and you've all seen it, is the price of drugs, the price of insulin. And it is, it is something that is essential to life. And some people aren't able to afford it, and people are dying. And so we actually had to very carefully think about how we could do research that would help to, take in front of Congress and say, yes, we absolutely need to address this problem of drug pricing. It's out of control, and people are dying. So.
Any other questions? I think now we can open it up and just have those final questions for this group of rock star researchers up here, and then we'll wrap it up. Hey, go ahead.
Yeah, so are your research functions within your association centralized under one unit, or is it kind of spread out throughout the association?
Well, as luck would have it,
Best case example here, guys. Best case example.
so I am part of a reorganized business insights unit. I used to be part and parcel of the marketing department. We also have a data analytics unit that was part of IT, and we had a survey unit that was part of research. Recently, those were all brought in under a director of business insights, and those three units were all put together so that we would be greater than the sum of our parts. So yeah, we've been reorganized into us, and then we also have the unit's been reorganized in the sense that it now reports to the deputy executive director, so essentially the number 2 person in the organization. So we're actually, for me, it was the perfect position within our org chart for what we do.
So jealous. We have a market intelligence department who does the market research, but everyone thinks they're an expert at market research and loves to send surveys to members and do their own research and publish numbers. And my job is to police that, so I'm not very popular in my organization.
Yeah, we had to police that a few years ago, but it had to come from the CEO. The CEO had to say, that's it. Surveys go through market research and research, economic research, and we were two different departments at the time. And just last year we were reorged so that we're now under the same department, and that's been such a blessing. It's fantastic.
Last quick question, go ahead.
I was going to ask if there's any cool factor projects you've done that you're especially proud of. I mean, I like the one about having to prove that diabetes kind of gets a little important, but
I can think of one. I don't know. It's kind of cool. There's a Bike to Work Day, which we promote heavily in Denver. It's actually in a lot of cities all over the United States. But we did a lot of follow-up research with people that participated in that particular promotion that we sponsored. And we really dug into what motivated people to try it, and then what happened afterwards. In other words, what made them stop riding, or what helped them to continue. So, and we found women were really eager to go on Bike to Work Day, but then they fell off the quickest too later. And a lot of it had to do with just making them feel more secure and safer on the roads. And so we started working on some of those things, and I think that was a pretty cool thing.
Perfect.
I think probably one of the coolest ones was when I was with Hilton. I was on the digital experience team, and we were doing the keyless entry. So as you use your phone today, I was I was on the digital side and worked with the market research team on, do people actually want to not use a key anymore? And we found that, from germs and things like that, and another thing you have to hold, that people want keyless entry.
All right, we'll be available for questions after. Let's give a warm thank you to this big panel here.
Thank you, everybody. Nice job again.